Jesus said, I have come that you may have life and have it in abundance. Good evening, friends. Welcome to Going to Ground for the second time, coming to you from Knaresborough in Yorkshire, the beautiful town of Knaresborough, where my parents-in-law live. And my son came to you from this little room in their house last night. And today we have been visiting around the place, went to Ripon, the little cathedral city of Ripon. And amongst many other interesting features of Ripon, we discovered, you may know this, that they have every night at 9 o'clock, a hornblower sounds the night watch. And they've done that in the town square every night since the 9th century AD. That tradition has lasted over 1,000 years and it's still done. And perhaps even more remarkable still, they own still the original horn given to the town authorities by King Alfred the Great in the 9th century. And I don't think they still blow that one, but that's kept in the town hall. Isn't that staggering? That length of tradition, and it's still taking place, still carrying on. We also, while we were there, visited the surprisingly good and really striking and moving Workhouse Museum. It's one of the best preserved workhouse complexes in the country, and partly that's so, I think, because the buildings remained in local authority ownership until only a few years ago. And so there was a continuity right from the days of the parish guardians of the poor in the Victorian era. And in, I think it was 1930, the workhouse system was finally abolished, although the poor laws didn't end until 48, when the national health and the welfare state began. But by the 30s, really the workhouses were for the elderly principally, and so with a name change, this one continued as an old people's home, and remarkably with some of the same staff working from the workhouse era right up until at the time when it closed for as an old people's home in the 1970s. Would you believe? So there's been this amazing preservation of the original building, and it's a stark reminder of the grim brutality of that system. Although it was the only welfare system that was closely linked, of course, to the parish system, and a reminder too of the gap between rich and poor being not only a physical one but a moral one. And the consideration of who were the deserving and the undeserving poor, and the view that poverty was often a moral state as well as a physical one. I've been thinking a lot about need and plenty, poverty and abundance over the last few weeks, and particularly this last week, because we've been thinking as a diocese in Salisbury how we use our resources and plan for the future. Like Joseph, in the lean years and the plenty, how do we plan for the wise use of our resources? How do we move from a position of scarcity to a position of abundance? And that is partly about perception. I'm sure too that it is about realizing the gift of what we have and making the most of the gift that is under our nose and in what we do have. The parish system has this old word benefice at the heart of it, which, like the Ripon hornblower, dates from the 8th, 9th century, something like that, certainly from Anglo-Saxon times, when the parish priest was set up with the gift, the benefice, which means the gift of the place, and was given the income of the tithes and the crops from part of the land. And the land itself was, as it was for most people, the means of their sustenance. So they ate what they grew, and each person had a strip of land, and therefore the church had its own land that fed and kept it going. I'm very interested in the idea of benefice for our own time. What is the immediate gift of what we do have in our own place, and how can we realize it? And whilst here in Nesborough, I was reading over breakfast this morning a lovely article by great writer Wendell Berry, who many of you will know, North American writer, ecologist, farmer, Christian, and a radical thinker, an elderly man now, but with so many good ideas. And in this little pamphlet, which always has good pieces in, called The Social Artist, I don't know if you've ever come across it, and he has an article here about this very theme. And I just thought in closing today I'd read you a passage from it. He's writing about gardens, actually, and how a garden can help you discover the sense of abundance and enoughness, sufficiency. This is what he writes. A garden is the most direct way to recapture the issue of health and to make it a private instead of governmental responsibility. In this, as in several other ways I've mentioned, gardening has a power that is political and even democratic, and it's a political power that can be applied constantly, whereas one can only vote or demonstrate occasionally. Finally, because it makes backyards or front yards or vacant lots productive, gardening speaks powerfully of the abundance of the world. It does so by increasing and enhancing abundance, and by demonstrating that abundance, given moderation and responsible use. This is limitless. We learn from our gardens to deal with the most urgent question of the time: how much is enough? We don't soup our gardens up with chemicals because our goal is enough, and we know that enough requires a modest, moderate, conserving technology. Atomic reactors, which is partly what he's writing about in this bigger article, and other big technological solutions, on the other hand, convey an overwhelming suggestion of the poverty of the world and the scarcity of goods. That's because their actuating principle is excessive consumption. They obscure and destroy the vital distinction between abundance and extravagance. Interesting distinction, that. The ideal of limitless economic growth is based on the obsessive and fearful conviction that more is always needed. I think that's a really powerful line. The idea of limitless economic growth is based on the obsessive and fearful conviction that more is always needed. The growth is maintained by the consumer's panic-stricken suspicion, since they always want more, that they will never have enough. Enough, however, is everlasting. Too much, despite all the ballyhoo about limitless growth, is temporary. Too much is temporary. Enough is everlasting. And big tech solutions are temporary. The lifetime of a nuclear power plant is 30 years. A garden, given the right methods and the right care, will last as long as the world. Some lovely ideas there. Now may we move to a position of abundance and enoughness in our own time. God bless you wherever you are this night as you go to ground.